Hi guys, my name is Emma and let's talk spooky stuff. So you guys asked for it and here I am with my top 10 of the last decade. This is a really hard video to do. I can't tell you how many movies I had written down. I had to put so many films I love against each other, and I have to say some of these are tiebreakers. It's really hard. And also quickly, a big thing about this is I went back and had a look at some of my earlier top 10 of 2016 lists and things like that. The years stamped for release are a little bit wonky, so this might be different to what I had before. Some films I still classified as being in one year when they were really from the year before, or came out late that year, or came out in Australia the year after. You guys know what it's like. Sometimes you don't see a film that was technically released the year before until the year after because it does the festival rounds and all of that. So because I was trying to figure out what year what film came from, I decided to just stick by a standard rule, and whatever year the film said it's from is what I'm going by, not the year of release in my country or in your country. It's just the easiest way to do it that is universal. And as some of you guys requested, I thought it was a really good idea to put hidden gems in here as well. So I have my favorites of the year and then also a hidden gem movie. And how I picked this is it was the movie that's my favorite that is the least spoken about. So it's not always my favorite that wasn't really hyped up or anything like that. I tried to go with films that I thought you guys hadn't seen, so it was a good recommendation because I figure for my top 10 of the last decade, you guys will have watched most of them. So of course, like always, I want to give you guys some recommendations to take home. I guess you're watching this at home to watch. Let's start off with my favorite of 2010, and that is a Serbian film. I'm joking, I would never put this here, I'm not that brave, but I do have a full video on my view of this film, and I actually do like it. But we're gonna skip over that, and actually I'm gonna go with something that you probably weren't even expecting, The Last Exorcism. This horror thriller mystery to me is one of the best mashes up of found footage and exorcism. It's very creative and has great twists and turns. In this film, a minister who has lost his way agrees to let a documentary crew film his last exorcism, but not everything is as it appears. As I said, this film has a lot of twists and turns, but I just really like the creativity behind this. Of course, it's found footage, but it is filmed by a documentary crew, so it's not really that handheld, shaky kind of Blair Witch thing. It's more of that found footage that is so interesting because it is filming something that you wouldn't normally see, so it's giving you access to something you wouldn't normally see, and the found footage is to cover their ass for that, if that makes sense. Not so much for scary effect. But I really love the twists and turns in this movie, and I know not everyone's the biggest fan of this one, but I just couldn't overlook it. It really impacted me, and I rewatch this film all the time. I love it. For underrated gem, I thought I'd go with We Are What We Are. This is a Mexican drama horror about a family with secrets struggling to survive after the family's patriarch dies suddenly. This film, of course, has been remade in America, but the original is just so gritty and grim, and I think you guys should definitely check it out if you haven't. My 2011 favorite horror movie is Red State. Kevin Smith's surprising, serious action crime horror is about a religious group who take teenagers hostage. I know, I'm a vague queen. But this one, if you haven't seen it, I really do want you to go in blind. I just don't want to describe what happens because it's such an interesting ride. I remember the actual day I saw this film. I was in London. I went to Camden by myself and bought a ticket to this random movie, and it turned out to be one of the best things I watched that year. Interesting enough, I'm not a huge fan of Kevin Smith's cultish kind of comedy dramas, which everyone loves. And I'm not saying that I'm not a huge fan as in I don't like it at all. I'm just not a huge fan. Like literally, I'm not a huge fan. I'm a fan of them, but I really love what he does with horror movies. I'm a huge fan of his experimental newer horror and obviously Tusk. And this one was so surprising that it's a Kevin Smith movie. Like, you just wouldn't pick it because it's done in such a serious way. But I'll leave that up to you to discover. And if I haven't convinced you yet, the film stars John Goodman, Melissa Leo, and Michael Parks. You really have to check it out. Trust me. And for my hidden gem of that year, it has to go to the Australian found footage film. I'm sorry, I'll stop with the found footage soon. The found footage film, The Tunnel. The Tunnel is an Australian horror mystery thriller about an investigation into the legendary abandoned train tunnels beneath Sydney. This one follows a journalist crew as they go down, and it's pretty scary. I think it's scary, and I'm very proud of it being Australian. If you're a found footage fan and you're into the kind of scary in the dark, what's behind that wall kind of situation, definitely check that one out. 2012, a film that I really haven't spoken about much, but definitely blew me away, is MANIAC. This is a remake of a 1980s American psychological slasher. This one stars Elijah Wood as the Maniac, and it follows him through his life as a mannequin restoration artist. In a giallo-style twist, he is traumatized by his disturbing past and makes plans to add realistic features to his mannequins. This film is quite raw, very disturbing, super gory, and I really like when Elijah Wood is in horror. I think he picks really unique roles, and I applaud him for that. And this film, I think, was done really well, where it takes a bit from the original, but really turns it on its head, and it's modern in such a scary, gritty way. It was a really disturbing, awkward, eerie watch, and sometimes you need that in horror. And for my hidden gem, I have to go with BERBERIAN Sound Studio, because I haven't heard a lot of you guys talk about this film. This is a British horror film by Peter Strickland, who may be familiar because of his recent film In Fabric. In this one, a sound engineer's work for an Italian horror studio becomes a terrifying case of life imitating art. It is a trippy, experimental horror, and I think you guys would really dig it if that sounds like your taste. It turns out remakes aren't so bad, guys. In 2013, Evil Dead, the remake of The Evil Dead, really blew a lot of our minds. I would say this is one of the best American horror remakes of all time. Every time I rewatch this remake, I'm floored by how terrifying and brutal it is. For me, it takes the core story and delivers a completely different message. It does not take from the original, but it brings a whole different film. The film is about a bunch of friends who go to a remote cabin who are trying to support their friend going through withdrawals. The relationships in the characters, the drug aspect, and the gore, you saw how much blood they put in this film. It's insane, it's gnarly, and I wouldn't be surprised if this gave people nightmares. I think this film is really scary, and I hope you guys feel the same. Let me know down below what you think. And for my underrated gem, I have to go with Bad Milo, because I have spoken about this film a couple of times on my channel, but it doesn't get enough praise. This is a comedy horror starring Ken Marino as Duncan, a man whose stress causes a stress monster to crawl out of his intestines and kill people. Yes, you heard right, this film cannot be unseen in the best way possible, but I can't just talk about this film. I also have to mention The House at the End of Time. This Venezuelan film is about a mother who is haunted by apparitions inside her house when a tragedy occurs. You need to write this film down. I'm sorry, I had to do two for this year, because this film, or both of those films, are completely different. But The House at the End of Time, which I believe has a remake, is so stirring, clever, and moving. If you're a big fan of foreign horror, check it out. Okay, I've already cheated once, and here I'm gonna cheat again, guys. I could not pick my favorite for 2014, so you get two. Number one being Creep. Creep is Mark Duplass and Patrick Bryce's found footage horror thriller creation. It follows a videographer's journey to a strange freelance job that quickly gets creepy. I'm a huge fan of Mark Duplass, and the way he tells stories is just so unique yet approachable. Hence, this film just really works for me. I didn't realize how many found footage films I included in this. Eek, sorry guys. But the next one is not found footage, and my second favorite of the year has to be Tusk. I swear the song Tusk just starts playing in my head as soon as I think of this film. This is the second Kevin Smith film on this list. I told you I was a fan of his horror work, and this one is much more kooky than the last. Okay, not kooky, it's batshit crazy. In this one, Wallace, played by Justin Long, is an arrogant podcast host who travels to Canada for the chance of an interview, but when plans change, he must adapt, and soon he falls into a nasty trap. Tusk is definitely a hit and miss for people. I totally appreciate this. This is really showing my taste. I just think that this film is a wacky ride. I like that there's a lesson behind it. I love how out there and over the top all of the characters are. I love Justin Long, and I just love the way this film comes together. I'm trying not to give any spoilers just in case, but wow. And my underrated gem has to be a film that I feel like is overlooked or forgotten. Housebound. This is a comedy horror mystery brought to you by the country that does them the best, New Zealand. In this one, a woman is on house arrest in her childhood home where evil happens to lurk. If you like dry humor and things that go bump in the night, these things are gonna go together. That sounds really bad. But if you're into New Zealand comedies like Deathgasm, Black Sheep, What We Do in the Shadows, this one, should be on your list. I think for 2015, a lot of people assume I would put The Witch. Even though it divided opinions, it's still not my favorite, even though I do like it. I really enjoyed The Devil's Candy. This eerie horror sticks to your brain and will leave you feeling shocked and slightly sick in the best way. Directed and written by Sean Bryan, this film follows a struggling painter who is possessed by satanic forces. I love this film. I think that it's visually so pleasing, and as I said, it just sticks to you in a really uncomfortable way, and I do love horror movies that do that. If you're into really stylized, moody films, definitely check out this one. And for my underrated gem is a film that was on Netflix. It might still be there. It is The Invitation. This one stars Logan Marshall Green as Will, a man who was invited to a dinner party and is the only one who feels like something strange is happening. Is he unhinged or is something very wrong? This one is for my psychological thriller horror lovers. So if you're into that and you haven't seen this one, you can thank me later. 2016, this one was not hard for me. This has to be one of my top 10, maybe top 10, maybe top 20, top 10 favorite films of all time, and it's South Korea's The Wailing. Directed by Hong Jin-na, this South Korean horror mystery thriller is about a small village that experiences sickness after a strange man arrives. Again, I'm being vague. Well, watch this film. If you like South Korean, if you like foreign, if you like film, you will not be sorry. And I decided to give you a treat for the senses for my underrated gem, Love Witch. Directed and written by Anna Biller, this comedy horror romance is about a witch whose complicated relationship with men ends in tragedy. The stylization, the vibe, and the set design for this film will make you fall in love. If you've been watching my channel for a while, my personal favorite for 2017 will not be a surprise. It is the adaptation of my favorite Stephen King book, which is Gerald's Game, and the movie blew me away. If you watch my review for this one, I'm pretty sure I cry, which is so geeky. But I loved this movie, and who would have thought my favorite book turned to movie being a good thing? I joke, I know it could be good, but it was just so rare and so amazing. Directed by Mike Flanagan, this film is about Jesse and Gerald, a married couple who go away for the weekend with the intent to spice up their marriage. But after a tragic accident, Jessie is left alone to battle with her mind. I think that this movie was just really well done, and I was really inspired by the way they transformed the message and really made it come alive. I'm sounding really geeky, and I'm very aware of that. But lo and behold, the film I had to pick as my underrated gem of this year also made me cry, but in a very different way. This is The Evil Within, and if you haven't heard of this movie, don't worry. It is a very rare, interesting story, and the story behind it is even more interesting. I did a video on this. I'm going to link it above because I think it's important for you guys to know the context of the situation of this film, because it's not as straightforward as you think. This is a low-budget passion project, and it just really changed me. I don't know if you guys ever want a list on films that changed me, whether that be horror movies or just films in general, but I could definitely give you a list of movies that really changed me as a person. I'm such a geek, I'm sorry. But this film will definitely be on that list. The Evil Within is a complicated film about a boy's inner demons and outer appearance, which is tested when he gains access to a mirror. That's all I'm gonna give you. Go check out the video or just watch the movie for yourself and then come back and watch it. And I don't know if it will affect you in the same way it affected me, but I can't explain. Something is just so special about this movie. It is moving. 2018 brings you yet another tie. I'm sorry. Sorry, not sorry. This is because I actually had these two as my top 2 places on my top 10 list of 2018, and I feel like I can't mention one without the other because they're so different and they brought such different elements, and I love them just as much as each other. The first one is UNSANE, a film that I always rave and rant about and no one else does, so I think I'm alone here. This is a Steven Soderbergh film that was entirely shot on a phone. The drama horror mystery follows Sawyer, a woman struggling with her past who is committed to a mental institution where she is confronted with her demons. This is a real deal psychological horror, and it's done in such a unique way. While Claire Foy's portrayal of Sawyer leaves you in awe. I was probably one of the only people who loved this film as much as I did, so I don't think it's for everybody, but I just really loved the creative direction they took, and I really felt for Sawyer, the character. I thought it was amazing. And of course, you guys were probably expecting this. I had to put in Hereditary. I'm sure every single one of you are aware of this film. This is Ari Aster's debut feature, and it's about a family in turmoil after a death. This film had many people split, but for me, it's so important, and it's such a challenging film with so many standout performances. It will haunt you for weeks. And from my underrated gem of 2018, I had to go with What Keeps You Alive. This Canadian horror thriller is about a married couple who go into the woods for some quality time together. But when secrets are exposed, the truth can be painful. I'm not usually a fan of these action, horror, chasey type thrillers, but this one really had something special. If you watch my top 10 of 2019, the next two are no surprise. I'm sure you guys knew I was gonna put Us as my favorite film. So of course, surprise, I only talk about Us in every single video. Jordan Peele's Us is about a family who fight to survive when their doppelgangers rise. This was my favorite film of last year. In my top 10 of 2019 video, a lot of you guys said that you didn't like Us, and that is completely okay with me. And don't think you're the only ones, because I got a lot of comments about it. Thank you for sharing your opinions with me. I really liked it, and I totally respect that we can have that conversation. For my underrated gem of 2019, I did talk about this in my hidden gem videos, but I really need to kick you guys in the butt if you haven't checked it out yet. And this is Harpoon. Harpoon is an independent horror film about three friends whose yacht trip takes an unexpected turn when their personal truths turn deadly. Again, this one is fast, slick, and just a good ride. It's a really good VOD movie, and I really like the dynamics between the characters. This is my list, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed it. You asked for it, and that was my top 10 of the last decade. Please leave what your top 10 are down below, and I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you want to subscribe, please do. We're trying to get to 50K, and I'll talk to you guys very soon. Stay spooky. Bye.